Today I'm going to show you how to use the SORTA-CLEAR 18, which is a food-grade silicone, to make a gang mold so that we can go from a wooden model to a ice glass that we can actually use for beverages. Now let's just jump into this project and see how we've done this. To start our project, we first need a model, and for that we're going to utilize this 4x4 piece of wood. We're going to cut it down to the sizes that we need the final glasses containers to be at, and then we're simply going to drill out the center. This is going to become the cavity of the glass, basically. This is where drinks are going to get poured into. Because our model has a straight vertical edge that goes 90 degrees up and then has a deep cavity in the middle, these will be somewhat difficult to demold. But again, if we keep the mold walls to a manageable size of about 1/2 inch, we should be able to demold these without much difficulty. To make the casting of this project efficient, I've decided to make this a gang mold. So every time I cast one of these, I actually am going to cast 6 glasses in one shot. And therefore, we're going to need 6 models. And then before we proceed to making a mold, we got to think that the wood is a porous product. It's a porous material, so we need to seal the wood, and for that we're going to be using the sonite wax. I'm simply going to brush the model with the sonite wax. I'm starting with the cavities because those are going to be the most important, and I'm going to lay a very thick layer off the sonite wax. I'm going to brush that all around except the bottom of the model, and you'll see why in a minute. Sonite wax is now allowed to soak into the wood for about 20 minutes. And then any of the excess that hasn't soaked into the wood is wiped away so it doesn't transfer into our mold and possibly ruin the casting. Now, once the models are prepped and ready to go, we're going to adhere them to a working surface. This is a melamine board that I'm using here, and I'm simply going to lay out some hot melt glue, and then I'm going to adhere these to our working surface. And you can see here why it was important not to put that sonite wax on the bottom of these blocks of our models. Otherwise, they would not stick to the working surface at this point. When making block molds and gang molds like this, it's really important that we keep the spacing between the models and between the models and the mold wall about even. We're looking for about 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch spacing. That's going to also facilitate the demolding of the castings out of this mold so much easier. It's going to be much easier to manipulate those mold walls if they're even thickness than if they're thick and thin, and therefore we're going to try to be as accurate as possible with setting up of this model. Now, the reason I'm using plexiglass here is just simply that you guys can see into the mold. That's it. Now I'm going to follow up and use the hot melt glue and go around the perimeter of our mold box here. Make sure that nothing leaks out when we go to actually pour the material. Now, the product we're using for this project is the SORTA-CLEAR 18. This is a translucent platinum silicone. It's an 18 diameter. But what's really important for our project is that this is a food-safe material, so we can use it for food-related projects, such as the one we're working on. The product does go up in temperature up to 450 Fahrenheit, so it is also safe to use for baking. Now, this is a 10:1 mix ratio, so we're going to use an accurate gram scale to dispense the part A and part B. And once you do have the material dispensed, we're going to follow the basic mixing procedure that we always do here. Scrape the sides, scrape the bottom of your mixing container. And one thing that I like to do on these important projects is called a double mix technique. What you do is you mix your materials and then you transfer them into a second clean mixing container and you give them one more mix, again scraping the sides and scraping the bottom. Now, there is no positive mix indicator when you're working with clear or transparent, translucent material. So it's a good habit to double mix your material to make sure that there is no unmixed part A or part B that makes it into your mold. I'm going to vacuum degas the silicone before pouring it into our mold box. And if you want to learn more about vacuum degassing procedures, just follow the link above. Now the silicone is poured into our mold box setup. As always, pour at the lowest level of your mold and let the material seek its own level up. It pushes air away from the model and makes sure that we have a clean and bubble-free mold on the surface. Now the material is allowed a full cure for 24 hours before demolding. After 24 hours, the material has fully solidified and we're able to take the mold box apart. I'm simply gonna peel these away and then we can start by separating our model, the wood blocks, from the working surface. Remember, we gotta break that seal between the hot melt glue and the working surface. And here is our mold with the models coming out. Keep in mind that whenever you're demolding your models for the first time, you're going to have a little bit of a drag. There's some friction going on. It's the first time the model is coming out of the mold, so that's going to be a little difficult. Or seem a little difficult, but as you can see here with the SORTA-CLEAR 18 being very flexible and the mold walls being even thickness throughout, makes it very easy for these models to be demolded. And you can see how flexible that mold is, yet keeps its original shape. Now, before we go on to make any kind of food-related items in this mold for consumption, it's really important that you take a look at the technical bulletin and follow the instructions that it calls for. Using warm water and dish detergent soap, the mold is scrubbed clean and then thoroughly rinsed, again using warm water, and allowed to dry before being put in any kind of food-related production. All right, now that our mold is clean, we can go ahead and boil some water. And then we're going to pour it into our mold. And if you ask yourself, why am I boiling the water here? By boiling the water, we're removing any kind of air that's trapped in the water and removing the microbubbles out of there, which means that our casting, once the water is frozen, is going to be much clearer than if we just poured water and let it freeze. Now, carefully, we're going to dispense the water into our mold. And then the whole mold is put into the freezer and allowed a full cure of the water to ice so that we can actually enjoy it as beverage containers. And here we are. The water is solidly frozen. We can remove that mold out of the freezer. And then we can simply pop those ice glasses out of our mold, and the mold is ready to be cycled again, ready to be used again. And here again, you can see how easy those come out, simply because some thought went into the mold when the mold was constructed to make the demolding process a lot easier down the line for the end user. And here we can see the end result of a project like this. This is what the castings look like when they're finished. And here we're enjoying some drinks out of these unique shot glasses. And you can pretty much do this on your own using these techniques and products. Now, if you got inspired by our project and need some materials for your own project, you can visit any one of our distributors around the world. So, and there you have it, a simple step-by-step instructional video on how to make a food-grade gang mold using the SORTA-CLEAR silicone. Now, if you have an idea about what we should do next, please let us know down in the comments below. And if you like this video, hit the thumbs up button. Now, to keep up with our latest mold making and casting videos, remember to subscribe.